Hey guys, welcome to Big Sister. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers. Those of you who just pop by every now and then, consider subscribing, guys. Check out my playlist. I have some videos that I've done there on different topics. So just check them out. I want to talk with you all about choosing for yourself. You know, a lot of times in life, there are things that you may experience and you may go through. And a lot of times you're looking for the solutions from other people. Sometimes you want answers. You want to know why. And this is natural. This is natural. You know, when things happen and you experience things, you want to know why this thing happened. And you may be asking about it. There may be some life events and things that occur that you remember very clearly. It's affected you, and you're trying to get the answers, and whoever it is will not give it to you. Whether it is your parents, your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your siblings, relatives, whoever it may be, could even be someone that you're dating or you dated and you want closure, but sometimes they just are not going to give you that. And the reason why they're not going to give you that is because they're not willing to face what they have done. Okay, that's one thing. A lot of times they genuinely do not feel they've done anything wrong because that behavior or whatever that is that they've done, it is natural to them. They think it's natural. Okay, sometimes there are parents who feels it's natural for them to treat their children a certain way, to discipline their children a certain way, and they always think that they're not doing you as badly as the parents did. Then you have others who just feel like this is how it's always been from one generation to the next to the next. This is it. Sometimes it's not always necessarily physical, maybe physical disciplines, but it could be mental, it could be emotional. If you have a family they were not loving, they did not tell you that they loved you, or they just have this one plan for your life and maybe you want to do something different, but they're like, no, this is what it's going to be. You know, there are lots of doctors and lawyers and things like that, specifically those. They never wanted to be doctors. They did not want to be surgeons, but that was just what they were told they were going to be, and their parents made them do it because this is what's going to look good for us. And I guess overall there are benefits for it, but a lot of times that's when you meet that doctor that's very frustrated or don't really care because they never wanted to do it in the first place. And being a doctor, you have to have empathy, you have to have patience, you have to care, you see. So if they are in this place where they didn't want to do it, it's really a dangerous thing. You want a doctor or anyone who is in healthcare, you want a person who really loves it, who wants to do it. So even if they experience burnout or they feel tired, they still have a level of dedication where they may say, hey, I need to take a break or whatever they may need to do. Because even though doctors work hard, they also have a little bit their flexibility, or to take a vacation, they can do it. They just have a lot more leeway than most people, okay? Especially when they have a specialty. But that's besides the point. So as I went down that rabbit hole, you see where what I'm saying. There are things, lots of people who have experienced things, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and then you've had physical violations. And when these physical violations happen, maybe you went to get help, maybe you told somebody and they didn't believe you, or they brushed it off. Or now that you're telling them as an adult, maybe you held it in all throughout your childhood and you're telling them, and they're either blaming you, they're saying it didn't happen, especially if the person is still in the family. That can be very disappointing, very disheartening. Maybe they always criticized you. Maybe they always said things about you. Maybe let's go back to the physical assault, the physical violations. These things happen and you're still being forced to be around this person, or suddenly you become the problem for saying something because they're telling you, if you do this, this person will go to jail and this is what's going to happen and all of that. They don't protect you. And so it continues to happen, or you are left with those scars and you want answers. You may want answers on why your father abandoned you. Why did mom abandon me? Why did my parents not want to raise me? Or, as I said, they both can be there, but there was not any love. So, what are you going to do when they don't want to give you the closure? A lot of times people stay in this place where they can't move on in their lives, or they have a very unhealthy perspective because they want closure. Well, when they're not going to give you the closure, you're going to have to give it to yourself. A lot of times they cannot give you the exposure, as I said, because they do not accept any responsibility. They don't want to be accountable for what they've done. They want to justify that behavior. And then another thing is they want to change the narrative and say it happened a different way, or that it was all in your head. So when you cannot get that closure, one thing you have to be confident on is your experience. This is what happened. And if they don't want to sit and talk with you and get to the bottom of it and tell you why things happen and how things happen and how you felt, then you have to get that for yourself. And that's going to be through counsel. That's going to be through prayer. For those of you who are like me, I believe in the Lord. I pray for help. And in that, even when I pray, I pray to God for the spiritual aspect, right? But I still have to use practical measures. So maybe you need to go and talk to a therapist, need to go talk to just someone you can sit down and express those things. You can get self-help books. Nowadays, if you don't have the means to actually go in to see a doctor, there's so much on YouTube these days. There's so much on the internet now where they have specialists, they have individuals that can talk to you about these things. Whether you had a narcissistic parent, whether you were violated in some way, depression, anxiety, it is all there. And I think that's pretty cool because there's a time that type of stuff would not have been accessible online. And I believe those platforms, they give a lot of good information that can be very helpful. You'll see even videos with people who have experienced what you have. And it's good to know that you're not alone and you're not crazy. And you can listen to these things. And again, the specialists, the psychologist or whatever, they have a YouTube channel, they talk to you. And then if you need some personal, something a little bit more, then they may offer you some other, maybe one-on-one, and you can check in their links and see what they have available and if it's affordable. But one thing you have to realize is what these individuals may have done, that is not your fault. Somehow victims are always left to feel like it is their fault. You did something, but that's a lie. That's how they presented that stuff to you. They made you feel like things were your fault. They made you feel like you should have done more. And sometimes, despite these things, you feel like maybe you get closure by trying to get closer to them to show them that you're not what they've always labeled you or how they've always treated you. If they always said you'll be nothing, you'll be going to school to just prove to them that you are something. And then you live your life by now you want the house to show them that you're not, and you're inviting them over and you get the car and you have all these things, and now they still act unimpressed in some way, but now you have to prove that you're better. Now they're like, well, let me live with you, or give me money, or do this for me, or let this person stay at your house. And you understand what I'm saying? Or you're paying for the trips, you're paying for all this because they saw your house. So there is just this ongoing thing that occurs when you're trying to get your closure that way. Excuse me. You're hoping to be accepted. You're hoping that they'll finally no longer compare you, but you're not going to get your closure like that because they're never going to say that they're sorry. Or if they say that they're sorry, they give it to you in this offhanded way. Well, if you felt that's what I did, my bad, my bad. Or, you know, I apologize if that's how you feel, but there's a but on the end. Or there's a guilting. I did the best I could. So, no, we're not talking about you doing the best you could. That was your best. I can't decipher that between your best or your worst. You understand? You're an adult now, or you're going to be an adult probably soon, in a few years. You can't expect as an adult to still be getting these answers from people who don't care. That boyfriend, why did you cheat? That girlfriend, why did you cheat? Why'd you do this? Why'd you lie? Why'd you treat me this way? You have to let it go. Because a lot of times they do those things because they feel like they don't owe you anything. They don't value you enough to feel like you're deserving of an answer. But you have to value yourself to not keep subjecting yourself to this sort of disrespect. And it's not by trying to get back at them. It's not by acting like them and being vengeful or vindictive like them, but it is by bettering yourself and building yourself up. And when you become successful, and when you do certain things, and when you are being loved and you're in a good relationship, you protect those things. Okay? That means if they're still the way they are, maybe you can't bring your healthy relationship around, bring them to unhealthy people. You have to set clear boundaries. And if they cannot follow those boundaries, or they don't respect those boundaries, excuse me, then you need to distance yourself. You have to be able to realize the difference. Closure for you will be to succeed, to keep moving on. Closure for you is getting those skills that you were never given, those tools you were never given, learning them. Closure is facing those demons that may be within you. And I just say that hurt, that pain, those things. Closure is facing the habits that you may have picked up as a result of being around these type of individuals. Maybe you've learned how to be very quick with your mouth and how to hurt people and how to cut people off and how to do this and do that. You have to face these things, or being afraid to love, or not being able to develop good friendships because you're always thinking, overthinking. Or if you have friendships, you're so overbearing because you think you have to prove yourself all the time. Okay, so you can do that where, if you're in a friendship or relationship, the person doesn't call you right away, you're always thinking something's wrong, and you're stressing that person out, and why didn't you text me, why didn't you? Nobody wants that. And sometimes that comes from something, from that rejection, from those things that you experienced. You didn't get the closure. So you have to get that. You have to take care of yourself. You have to look in yourself, because a lot of times, remember, those things that your family, whoever that hurt, that stuff deposited inside of you. And it tries to take root, and because you think about it and you cry and you ponder on it, and some things you will believe, some things you'll be angry about, but it's still in your heart. So it handicaps you socially in many ways. So a part of you growing and having closure is also facing what may be in you and learning not to operate in that behavior anymore. Learning how not to be quick to anger, be quick to jump ship, be quick to jump to conclusions, or being too needy, being too clingy. These are hard lessons. And that's where you have, as I said, those videos, books, things of that nature that can help you to do that hard work. Your closure comes in you succeeding and doing your best at whatever level you're at. Success is not always making six figures a year, just different things. But wherever you're at, when you reach that place, you protect it. And if you have unapologetic, unapologetic, unapologetic relatives, unapologetic parents and siblings, you have an ex that's taking no responsibility, you have to just let it go. Let it go. You get the closure that you need, and you continue to thrive, and you continue to keep going further. And you know what's going to happen when you reach this place that you're doing well and you're healing? Guess who's going to come knocking? Guess who's going to come knocking? Your ex. Guess who's going to come knocking? Guess who's going to want those unapologetic relatives, the unapologetic parents and siblings? Why? You're doing good now. And people like that, they want to be a part of that. They either want to be a part of it so they can say, oh, look at my son, look at my daughter. That ex, now they want to be with you because you're successful. They want to be a part of that, but it's all selfish. And you let them in, they're still not going to take responsibility. So the first thing that has to happen is there needs to be acknowledgement of what has happened. And if you see that they're still being that way, then you stand your ground and you move forward. Because what will happen is after all that healing, all those tears, all the stuff that you went through to become the person you are today, they'll come in still unapologetic, still thinking they can do the same things that they've been doing all that time to you and tear you right down. And it will be hard. Sometimes you'll never recover from it, depending on what they do. Excuse me. I'll tell you something that I read in the Bible, and it was about Moses. I'm sorry, it was about Joseph. And Joseph had been betrayed by his brothers, and he was sold as a slave. They were very jealous of him. Long story short, after some time, he's second in command from the Pharaoh, and he does well, and they don't even recognize him when they see him. And there was a famine in the land, and they had to go to Egypt. And again, Joseph was in charge of that, and they didn't recognize him. You know, I assume he would have had on all the regalia. He looks very different. He would have shaved his beard, all of that. And long story short, he kept his identity from them, all of that. And there were a series of tests and things that he put them through to see if they had changed. And they were apologetic. He saw that there was a change. And only when there was a change, he saw there was a change in them, did he finally reveal who he was to them. And they reconciled. Okay? You'd have to read it to get it. I didn't want to make this video longer than it should be. But the point is, you cannot be reconciled to people who are just as defiant, just as disrespectful as they were. People who will blow off your hurt and your pain, who will discount it, who will act like you are over exaggerating it. You can't move forward with them. So when you do well and when you are at peace, sometimes you're just far away from them. You're not around them and you have your peace. You may be in just a one bedroom, 600 square foot place, but it's yours and you have peace, right? You're finally happy. You're doing better. You're doing the work. You're working out. Whatever you're doing, you are happy now. Well, you cannot open your doors to relatives who wants to come a knocking because they're curious. Well, where are you? They don't have the person they normally could beat up on or in some way, form, or fashion. They don't have the person that they would normally abuse. Your ex doesn't have that person that they know they can get whatever they can get from, because it's very hard. If you are a good person and you are a kind person, individuals like yourself, it is hard to find that in relationships. So they'll want to come back to you, or they'll see you looking nice. They see you on a cruise. They just see something of you where you look good. And they research and they look and they're like, what? So now they want to come around. But if they're not truly changed, they're going to take you back down. And sometimes that's all people want. They want to know that, especially like with an ex, they see you, the new and improved you, the better you. They didn't know that you still had some more in you. You see, they thought they were done with you. They have used you up. But here you are, successful, going into higher circles, doing well. Um, you have your own place, you have your own car, you have a steady job. It could be things just as simple as that. And they're like, oh, but all they want to do, they want to know that they still have access. And when they know they have access and they could come over and they can still sleep with you or they can still whatever, once they do that, they're bored again because they're not changed on the inside. So it is your job to get your closure. It's sad. It shouldn't be that way. You should have people who are willing to hear what you have to say, sit down with you, say that they are sorry, listen to you, allow you to cry, allow you to express yourself, and you move on. But you know what? Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that won't do that. They have too much pride. It could be a parent. They have a lot of pride. They think, I raised you, I made food, I did this, I did that. You're supposed to do that. That's what you're supposed to do. It's like someone have a baby. I breastfed you. You're supposed to do that. I did not ask to be born. I'm not saying that you should not appreciate your parents. You should. But when they're throwing these things up, that is their responsibility to justify that they can disrespect you or neglect you or not listen to you. It's not right. So, unfortunately, you will have to do the hard work, but it will be worth it in the end. You'll discover your strengths. You'll discover things about yourself. You can see yourself in a new light. Not seeing yourself in the way that thinking you're ugly and thinking that you're too dark or you're too light, you're too tall, you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that. A lot of the things that you look at and a lot of things you think your lips are too big or my hands are too big or I have little fingers, my fingers are short, I'm short. It's because someone said that to you. There's no child who ever in their life look at themselves and think badly about themselves. They don't know how to. It is when the family says to that child, you have a big nose, or you're so skinny, or you're so fat, or why are your feet so big? Why is your head so big? That child is going to start to look at their feet and their head and their nose and compare themselves. If they're being told they're too white or they're too dark, they're going to start to look at that. Why is your hair like that? They've never thought about their hair because they're born with innocence. They're ready to accept. They don't know. They're just happy until a parent, a relative, siblings start to say things and to compare them. And see, you carry that with you. You say, I'm ugly. Why you would say that? Because someone told you that. Oh, your lips are too big. Why? Because someone said it to you and then showed you what they said the standard of beauty was, what your lips should look like, or what your nose should look like, or what your skin should look like. And you may be in a society that's that way. And that's another tough one, right? But let's stick with family first. People that are closest to you. Don't put yourself in a position where you want closure and it keeps you from growing. Give yourself the closure. You may not know the answer, but you know what has happened to you. And you did not imagine those things. You know what you experienced. You know how you tried to understand. You know how you endured. You know how you begged, you pleaded, you cried. You know how you remained loyal and faithful for some time. And you know what? If you acted out, you know that in some cases you acted out because you were in so much pain after being neglected and hurt and betrayed so many times. You acted out. You have to know the difference. I think I did a video on that already. I will check. If not, I'll do one. You know what they did. And what you know is now that you're asking, they don't want to give you any closure. And sometimes you're afraid to ask. That's understandable. But they know what they did, and they're not willing to come to you and say, look, I know I did this. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. They don't want to do that. And that's your answer. And now you have to figure out what is next. If they will not give me the closure, then I have to take that journey. And I have to, you may not get all the answers you need from them, but you can get some solutions to healing yourself so that you can be better for your children if you decide to have children, that you'll be better for your husband or wife if you decide to get married. You'll be a better friend, you'll be a better coworker, you'll be a better boss, supervisor, or just a coworker. I believe I said that already. Because if not, you know what you're going to do? You're going to become like the people who hurt you. And you know what you're going to tell yourself? You're going to tell yourself the same thing that they told you. Well, I'm not as bad as they were. But you know what? A burn is a burn is a burn. It still hurts. Whether it's a first degree, second, or third degree. Third degree burns are the worst. But you be like, well, I just burned you. It's a second degree, not a third degree, but it is still a burn. Oh, it's just a first degree, it's not a second, it's still a burn. That's what you have to understand. That's what people who say this to their children, well, I'm not, you had it, I had it worse than you. But why do I have to have any kind of worse? Why do I have to have any of it at all? There must be a better way to do things. So guys, that is all I have. And when they won't give you closure, don't stay trapped. All right, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and talk to you soon.